Not far away, let's talk story. It's where my mama was born, it's where I come from, it's where my daddy fell in love not long ago.
Aloha everyone, this is Larry Camp, and welcome to the Nobody Knows Your Story podcast, which just happens to come with a side of Hawaiiana. Nobody Knows Your Story is a podcast which I believe will impact each listener in a positive way. As you listen to the experiences that have transformed, shaped, and guided each guest, perhaps you'll better understand your own personal journey. Some will surprise, some will make you question, and some will inspire, but all will leave you in a better place for listening in. As for the Hawaiiana, well, that's just a big part of my life story. So I invite you to check in from time to time, or better still, add Nobody Knows Your Story to your list of favorite podcasts. You'll enjoy hearing the life experiences of people just like you.
Doesn't matter if you're living on the mainland, or if even further you happen to roam. If you find yourself in some distant and strange land, your Hawaiian heart will always lead you home. From the moment when you first see your ohana, and when you kick your slippers off outside their door, when you fed fried rice and lao by your mama, plate after plate till you can't eat no more, then you know why Honu always finds his way there, and why Humu's much too smart to roam. And it's easier to see the more you stay there. Your Hawaiian heart will always lead you home. Or maybe you left to find adventure, or just ran away from home. So you've been so far away a long, long time. But now Koa'eula tells you what you always should have known. Friend, your heart beats to the pa'u just like mine. We don't care how long it's been, we're glad to see ya. Pe'ea oe, hea hakamea ho. A breeze waves a palm tree so they can greet ya. Your Hawaiian heart will always lead you home.
Hey, aloha everyone, and welcome to another life story on the podcast, where the intent is that you will not just enjoy listening to an interesting story, but also be impacted in a positive way. Now that positive vibe started already as we just heard John Cruz sing Hawaiian Heart. Pretty upbeat little song. Mid-podcast, we're going to hear Iam Tongi. Yes, the Iam Tongi who was on, I don't know, Wayne, what was that show? Was it The Voice, or I get those shows mixed up?
I don't know.
I'm not real good. I don't watch them. I watched that one because, you know, Ian was from Kahuku on the island of Oahu, so I naturally watched his performances. And he's got a song called Waikiki, and it's about a girl named Kiki. But if you think about it, Waikiki, get it? All right, so my guest today is my good friend Wayne Cavicchioni. And though Wayne would tell you his life story's not that interesting, I know otherwise.
Nah.
So Wayne, welcome officially to Nobody Knows Your Story.
Thanks, Lawrence. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. And Wayne's joining us on his phone today, so the audio might sound a little different, but hey, I can hear you fine, so I know it's going to be okay.
Okay, good. So what would you like to know about my boring life story? I shouldn't say boring. I should say average.
Well, let me say this. Since I can
Just,
see you wearing a Chicago White Sox hat, and it looks like you've got on a Chicago White Sox jacket of some sort or pullover.
That's because it's cold, and I never turn the heat on in my house or anywhere. And because in Arizona, we freeze more in the wintertime because we never turn our heat on. If you're in
Yeah,
the Midwest, you turn your heat on and you're comfortable.
it's true. I can remember when I lived there that sometime I told Judy, I said, let's see how long we can go and not turn the heat on this year. And we went pretty far. And then I think there was one time we hit a little cold spot and we had to turn it on. But yeah, you can do it. I know that I've had friends go the entire winter and never turn the heat on. So
I probably will now, but since my father passed, I used to take care of him, and I always would warm it up for him.
right.
But,
The point in me mentioning the White Sox hat is that's a good place to start. Where are you from, Wayne?
I am from a town called Westchester, Illinois, which is just outside Chicago, maybe 8 miles outside the city.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably a good place to start. Talk about your growing up and, things that went on back then, some of your memories.
Well, my parents moved. They were part of the urban sprawl that left the urban cities back in the late 50s, where everybody went out to the suburbs. Well, I was that. We went out to the suburbs, and my father built a house in Westchester about 1960, 61. And then from there, it was just a normal suburban upbringing, played sports all the time. Out there every season, we played every sport. And that's how I became a White Sox fan. And I don't know, it's just typical urban. None of the city problems where I live.
I guess we have to mention that you said you grew up a White Sox fan. And that means that really, if you're a hardcore White Sox fan, you're not a Cubs fan.
That's correct. I mean, as I've been getting older, I've softened up, so I don't mind the Cubs anymore. But when I was a young kid, I didn't want the Cubs to win a game. It was that's just the way it was. You were either we're not even the number one team in our own city, being a White Sox fan. Right. I always said it's like what do they call that, Napoleon syndrome or something?
Yeah,
that's what the White Sox fans have in Chicago.
Yeah, it's kind of like being an Angels fan living not that far from the Dodgers. So I understand what you mean.
Well, yeah, that's just true. You're an Angels fan, probably the same type of thing being in LA.
Yes. And I too followed the Dodgers, though. I wasn't as hardcore against them as you, because when I was a young man, like 7, 8, 9 years old, my favorite player was Sandy Koufax. My next favorite player was Willie Mays, and they were on opposing teams that didn't like each other. So, but I liked them both because they were just such great players.
Yeah. We didn't have too many great players on our team. We had Louis Aparicio.
Back when the shortstops were small.
Yeah.
Not the Cal Ripken 6'4" guys. Back then it was like, who was the little guy that played? Freddie Patek, remember, from the Pirates, and he was like 5'3" or 4 or something.
Oh yeah.
So when you grew up in the Chicago suburbs, siblings? Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother. He was born in 1952. He's also out here in Arizona with me now, but we were 5 years apart. So it was kind of like, we weren't real close in age. So we and he didn't like sports growing up. He didn't get into sports until he was an adult, and I was a sports from a kid, Yeah,
and 5 years when you're a kid is a big difference. I mean, if you're 5, he's 10. If you're 10, he's 15. So yeah.
That's absolutely correct. I remember at a point where he would have to babysit me, and it would aggravate him because, like, maybe when he was 15 or 16 and I was 10 or 11, my mother would say, hey, I have to go somewhere. You have to watch. And he wanted to go out. You know what I'm saying? So that used to aggravate him.
Hey, I just noticed you're not even at home. You're sitting in like a sports bar or something. Is that where we had lunch like last month?
No, I'm in the Fox Cigar Lounge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's why I did it here, because I don't know. It's why I come here a lot.
Well, you must. I mean, they're letting you talk on and do a podcast interview there in their facility.
Yeah,
so.
Well, and they would have let me lower the radio in here too if it was too loud for you.
Nah, I can't even hear it.
They said they would have lowered the radio for me.
No, you're all good. So, hey, now back to growing up in that youthful era. If I remember, I think you were an altar boy, weren't you?
No, no, I was not.
Maybe you wanted to be an altar boy.
No, I was never an altar boy. I grew up Catholic. Yeah, but,
yeah, I knew that.
No, I just never did that. I never went to never was the altar boy. I used to go to church on Sunday. And then we used to have what's called catechism because I went to a public school, not the Catholic school. And so we used to do that on Sundays too, till up to a certain age.
I think if from past conversations, you told me that your religious, I guess, affiliation or whatever kind of went away early. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my affiliation with the Catholic Church went away probably in the later 80s.
Okay.
My sons were baptized Catholic. And then I just didn't see, well, I'm an atheist now. I just don't see how religion fits into our system.
And we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we get a little later into your story. But so when you were growing up, you were going to church while you were living at home with your folks. And did your parents stay married throughout your childhood and things like that? Okay.
Yes.
It seemed like anymore, that's almost a roll of the dice. It's 50-50 if somebody had their parents through their, teenage years or they didn't. I mean, my parents divorced when my little sister was still in high school, but the rest of us were already out of the home. So, but she went through that. She went through, and we were just talking about it the other day. She remembers those years of tension in the home, but I didn't because I was gone.
Yeah, they stayed married, but so it was just like every other couple. They had their issues,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but they stayed married. I think they were married for, oh man, they got married in 1949, and my mother died in 2008. So they were married that long.
Okay. And when you were growing up, I remember having some discussions about some of your early jobs and things, but why don't you mention some of those things that you did as a young guy still living at home?
Oh, young jobs. And when I was still living at home, I had my first job was working at a smorgasbord. I don't know if that's a word that they use anymore. But my job was just to fill all the food and to keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, it's just a normal. Then I had a job at a gas station going through high school.
Nothing that impacted you as a teenager and set you on a course like, oh, I want to do this for a career.
No, not really. I mean, I was never educated. I got my high school diploma. I was never educated. I was always a blue collar type man. I worked in some warehouse before I moved out here. Then I moved out here in Arizona in the early 80s, and I had a landscaping business for years. I think that's when I met you. I owned my own landscaping business.
Yep.
And then from there, I had my own small little trucking company where the businesses were my own. I very seldom worked for somebody else. I just owned a truck, and I made deliveries with, but that was later on now. That's where I just stopped working. That's what I was doing, making deliveries. I should have been doing that from when I first moved out here.
And let's get back to that. Why did you move to Arizona? My
brother was already here, and I always knew my parents wanted to retire here. So I said, all right, well, I'll go out there. I'll see what it's like. I'll just go out there and see what it's like. So I came out here, and I fell in love with it out here. I stayed. My brother was here. We had a place in Scottsdale. That was 1981. And I think I was here a couple of weeks, and I says, yeah, I like it here because you could play sports year round.
Yep.
Back home, you play sports a certain time of year. Then in the wintertime, we could play a little bit of hockey and stuff. But as you get older, we didn't do that. The only thing you did back home is bowl. You went bowling.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked playing softball year round out here.
And that's where we met.
And that's where you and I met. And that's because I was always on a softball field,
Yeah, and I remember you played on teams against the team I was on.
Right.
I remember that. I don't know for how long, but at some point, I remember having a conversation with you one time. I was playing third base, and I think you were standing on third base, and I said, you should play with us, man.
I know. You did. You asked me. And so that's how I get. So I said, okay, yeah. I started playing with you guys.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. We played, I don't know how many years we played together, but, quite a while.
Yeah. I remember I was the only non-Mormon on your team.
Is that true?
That's true. And I remember saying to you, I'm not a Mormon. How come I'm playing on your team? And you said, when I see a nice person, I know who a nice person is. You said that to me.
Yeah. That sounds like me.
Yeah. So I played with you guys.
Yeah.
I always,
Well,
I always, I always tell a joke to everybody. I go, when you play in the Mormon teams, you don't have to worry about stepping over the chewing tobacco, because guys like to chew tobacco when they,
oh yeah.
yeah, I never did that. I couldn't stand that. And then you're in the dugout and you have to step over all the spit that everybody's spitting. Never had to do that in the Mormon teams. And the floor was clean.
That's true.
Yeah, that was.
And I'm not sure how many of those Mormon guys are still Mormon, but yeah, back then, because that's a ways back. I don't know if that was probably mid '90s, don't you think?
Yeah, early to mid '90s. That was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are fun times. Well, let's talk a little bit about, just for a minute, about your landscaping business, because my son Crosby worked for you for a little while, but he was a teenager, and I'm not sure how good a worker he was, but probably more work for you.
The guy that used to work with me was from Mexico, and he used to call him Crosby. Couldn't say Crosby. So from now on, I always say Crosby. That's what I call him. Yeah.
That was fun for him. I mean, as he looks back on it, it's a fun memory now. I don't know how much fun it was when it was 112 degrees out working, doing landscaping, but
yeah, he never complained. He did the work just like the rest of us.
And how many years did you have the landscaping business?
Oh boy, from the mid '80s to probably to the early '90s. And then I just started to get too old, and I was tired of working in the heat. And I said, I got to go in another direction. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and that's when you started the delivery business, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned earlier on that you pretty much always worked for yourself, and there's got to be some satisfaction in that, because I've done both. When you're working for somebody else, whether it's a mom and pop or it's a corporation, because I did both of those. There's some frustrating times there, because you're somebody's telling you what to do in some way all the time, right?
Yeah, people always used to say to me, "Oh, you own your own business. It's nice not having a boss." No, I have more bosses than you, because I have customers that you have to keep happy.
On the other side of working for yourself too, is that you have to keep yourself motivated and get out there and do things, because if I don't feel like going in today, or I'm going to go in later, all of a sudden, if you're not out there, checks just don't roll in every 2 weeks like they do when you're working for a company.
Right. And I never had that problem. I used to get up and go out to work all the time. It would drive me crazy if I couldn't get up and go out to work. So that was never the issue for me. I always got up and got out there.
Did you get your work ethic from, I was going to say, did you get your work ethic from your parents, from your dad?
Probably my mother. My mother worked. Yeah, my mother, she was more the breadwinner growing up. Everything I have today, I can thank to my mother, because she worked like a dog all her life. She scrimped and she saved, because, she was born in the mid 20s, grew up through the 30s, and she had immigrant parents. She just saved her money. They saved and saved and saved. She would work 6 days a week. She owned a beauty salon, but again, it was her own beauty salon. We built it in the basement of the house, and she used to do those ladies back in the 60s, with the shampoos and sets. Those women would come in every week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the basement of our house. So I probably got my work ethic more from my mother. But I went to work because if I took a day off, I didn't get paid.
Exactly. It's kind of funny, because you heard what I said. So did you get your work ethic from your dad? Because in my growing up, I grew up, as you said, Mormon. And in the Mormon religion, the women were encouraged to not work outside the home. Some did. My mom was a school teacher. Well, when she wasn't having kids. So she taught school for many years. But my mom was kind of a rarity. Most of my friends' moms, they were all at home. And it was the dads that were working. That's why I said that. But even now, as an older person, I still kind of hearken back to that, because, we're basically the same age. And I thought, oh, well, your mom was probably at home. Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, she was home, but and it's funny, she always made sure dinner was on the table every day. She worked we built a 3-chair beauty salon in the basement. She even had a couple employees working there with her for a lot of years. But she always made sure that dinner was on the table. When she did both.
Yeah. And like you say, you learned from her example. And maybe that's where you always also wanted to become your own boss too, because maybe you saw some of the freedoms of that, but also, like you say, if she didn't get down there to work, then, money didn't come in either. So that's the other part of, being your own boss.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked both ways, but it just seemed, I always seem to gravitate to if I was working for somebody, I was thinking, why can't I do this on my own? And I would do my own thing. Then I would start it up myself.
And so your mom passed away in 2008, but I know your dad lived quite a bit longer and lived with you at least for the last 10, 15 years of his life?
Yeah, I had to take care of him because he couldn't live on his own anymore. He died during COVID. COVID got him. 2021. It was right before the vaccines came out. And I don't even know how he got it. He didn't hardly ever leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
But it must have been, I must have brought it home somehow. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's still so much that we don't know about that. But he was also pretty old. Wasn't he like 94?
96.
96, yeah.
When he passed, he was 96, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's why I don't feel bad because he lived a great life. He lived a long life.
Yeah. He was around a while, like you say, and you were a good son. You took him in and took care of him there for quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Made sure he had his breakfast, and he only ate twice a day. We never had to give him lunch because he ate 2 meals a day all his life. So I just gave him 2 meals a day, even.
I remember when Judy and I were living over in Hawaii, I remember talking to you a number of times and trying to get you to come over. And there was always something, but you never came over. So I know you've still never been to Hawaii.
No, I've never been to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go there. I've never been there. I don't know. I'm just not a big traveler. I'm more of a home. Now that I took after my father.
Mm-hmm.
My mother had to force him to go to Hawaii one time because, they were well off. She owned her own business and they were well off. They had a lot of money. She had to force him to go to Hawaii. He finally went. He just was never a big traveler.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I got that from.
Yeah, because even now you don't go on a lot of trips. I mean, we're 7 hours apart, and I've been here 5 years, and you still haven't been out here.
Yeah, never been out. I barely go to the other side of town. When I worked, I had to drive the whole valley every day, making deliveries here and there. When I get home from work, I didn't want to go I don't want to even go to Scottsdale. I stay right here in my area.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Ocean spray in the air, trade winds waving your jet black hair. Island girl, kinda east side crazy. You never call me yours, but you call me baby. Why, Kiki? Why you wanna do me like that, Kiki? Why you gotta hurt me so bad, Kiki? Why you got me down on my knees? Why, Kiki? Tired of wave touch and a sugar cane kiss. Put the straw in my summer tuck down the last sip. All I got of you now is a number in the phone. I'm sitting here thinking, and all I wanna know is why, Kiki? Why you wanna do me like that, Kiki? Why you gotta hurt me so bad, Kiki? Why you got me down on my knees? Tell me why, Kiki? Why you wanna make me so sad, Kiki? Take my heart and break it in half, Kiki. You got me begging pretty please. Tell me why, Kiki? Why are you leaving me lonely? And why
always a pretty healthy guy, at least when we were playing ball and different things. But we got to talk about a little bit about what's gone on for you the last couple of years anyway.
Yep. At least the last year and a half. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had to have a liver transplant. My liver failed.
Yeah, but you didn't know that. If I remember, you just all of a sudden started kind of feeling poorly.
Yeah, I really wasn't feeling that bad. I just went to a doctor, to get a checkup, and he noticed my blood was all off, and that's when it started. Now, I want everybody to know, I tell everybody that I had to have my liver failed. I had stage 4 liver cirrhosis of the liver, but I never drank an ounce of alcohol in my life. I was a non-drinker. Everybody always thinks, oh, yeah, he must have been a drunk. I never drank an ounce of alcohol in my life. Never been drunk
I know
in
that.
my life.
Yep, I'm aware of that. So when we were talking about this, what you said that there's a certain percentage of people, or a very small amount, that will get that cirrhosis like you did, and can be non-drinkers, and so it can happen.
Yes, and I have celiac disease, where I have to be gluten free. And if you do a search on Google, celiac disease and liver, I have like a 10 times greater rate of having liver problems. People who are celiac have a greater chance of having liver problems. So if anybody out there is a celiac, get your blood work done on a regular basis. Even if you feel healthy, get your blood work done on a regular basis.
And so this hit you probably at about age, 64, something like that, 65, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I was 64. I turned 65 when I was in the hospital last year. I was in the hospital for 3 months.
And when they did the blood work initially, didn't they just think it was a gallbladder issue?
Yeah, and then the doctor says he wanted me to go to a hepatologist, cardiologist, and a hematologist. He goes, I want you to go. My regular doctor said, I want you to go see those 3 guys. And he put it in the order he wanted me to go. I went to the hepatologist, and that's where she told me that I had, the hepatologist is the liver doctor. I'm pretty sure it's called a hepatologist. Yeah. Yeah, she came in, they did a test. She came in and told me that I had stage 4 cirrhosis of the liver. And I'm still feeling good. I didn't know what, but that's where it all started. And then I started, then my gallbladder was shot. I was one of these people, some people get a 1 stone in their gallbladder and they're in severe pain. My gallbladder was loaded. It was loaded with stones, and I never had any pain. My gallbladder was so swelled up with stones, it was pressed up against the liver, and it was pressed up against my intestines. When they finally took it out, it took them 5.5 hours to take my gallbladder out. That's how everything was all connected. But before they took the gallbladder out, they told me, they go, my liver was still functioning fine, even though it was stage 4 cirrhosis. And they told me, the doctors came in and they said, if we take your gallbladder out, your liver could fail. And then then they go, I can remember the doctor going, but I don't think it's going to, but we have to get the gallbladder out. And they gave me all the warnings. But before we did that, I went through all the testing to get qualified to be on the liver transplant list. So then as soon as they took the gallbladder out, boom, my liver failed, numbers all dropped down. They rushed me to ICU. I don't know how long I spent there, because now they're giving me all blood transfusions, because now I'm sitting there alive with a liver that's not functioning. So I had to get on the list. And then I had to get on the active list. It's called an active list. And I think they probably triage it, and I was probably way up high. So it took them 2 weeks. That was the worst 2 weeks of my life.
I was just going to say, let's talk about those 2 weeks, Wayne, because I know all about that, man.
I wanted to die. I seriously, when I tell you, people say, oh, yeah, I wanted that. No, I wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad I felt.
Yeah, and you couldn't do anything, and you were just laying there.
I was laying in the bed. The TV wasn't on for 2 weeks.
Yep. You didn't even have the interest in turning it on. I mean,
no, I just laid there. Couldn't get comfortable. The nurses would have to keep coming in to move me. I couldn't move myself. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Wayne. They always say there's no atheist in a foxhole during a war. When you were laying there on that bed, did you think about praying at all?
I really didn't. I mean, they would send the church has their people that come in. The I think they're non-denomination, I think. And they would come in, I would say to them, I go, I don't need it. I go, because I'm an atheist. I go, but you do whatever makes you feel better. If it makes you feel better to say a prayer over me, then so be it.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, that's what they want. And then after a while, they stop coming in.
This guy, he doesn't want us.
They don't want it. So
that 2 weeks, though, I mean, and we've talked about it before, that 2 weeks was hell. It was. And of course, you didn't know how long it was going to be. No. You go in there and it's like, okay, well, it's been 2 days. Oh, now it's been 5 days. Oh, now it's been a week. And this went on for 2 weeks.
Doctors came in every day and I'd ask them, you know. Finally, it was like a couple of days before I had the liver transplant. One of the doctors says, we think we got one for you, you know, but they couldn't really guarantee it because, you know, you don't know. But they think there's one that they're going to fly in the next day or something like that. Because the person who I got the liver from was a person who was brain dead. All his or her organs were still functioning, but they were brain dead. Mm-hmm. So I guess they could coordinate everything better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So then they said, yeah, we think we have one. And he said, and then just a couple of days later, they said, congratulations, you know. Everybody congratulates you like you know you just had a kid or something. Yeah, congratulations, we got. Yeah, okay, let's go.
Well, in a way, it is like having a kid in a way, because when I have a kid, now there's this newborn, there's new life, and when you get that liver, your life continues, and now you have extended life. So
yeah, that was extended life. I mean, you know, that person didn't save my life because nobody can save a life because. You just can't. Everybody's going to die at one time. But they extended my life, you know.
Yep.
That person extended my life. Yeah.
We just had a neighbor over this morning, and her husband just passed 5 days ago. And so she was talking about service and what they're going to do and celebration of life and that kind of thing. But he had dementia, and he had some physical ailments too. And so then you start talking about quality of life also. And I'm not here to say what's right, what's wrong. I think that's a call everybody has to make for themselves or for their loved one. But I watched my grandmother go through her last 2-3 years of life with Alzheimer's to the point that she recognized none of us. She didn't know if we were who we were. She knew nothing. And so I look at that and think, I'm not sure that's a quality of life that I would want to live. But again, hey, I'm just speaking for myself. So the fact that you now have this liver and you're slowly making your way back, because you need to tell a little bit about the toll that this took on your body, the amount of weight that you lost. So yeah, you have this liver, but the quality of life still wasn't there yet.
Oh no, because I also had I have some blood issues going on. I've had that going on for a long time. I like anemic. You know, I was anemic, but I had I guess there's a virus. It's called CMV. 80% of the people have this virus in their system. 20% of us don't. Well, I was one of the 20%, but the person who gave me the liver, he was one of the 80%. So then when I got the liver, I got this, the CMV virus, and it got real high. I've been on antibiotics. I've been still taking them to get rid of the virus. It's gradually been coming down. Now, I was just so weak. I went from 218 pounds. I had you say 218 pounds. I had some body fat, but I was mostly lean mass. I had a lot of lean mass on me because I was a weightlifter for a long time. But I went from 218 pounds down to 155 pounds. Yep. So I was weak. But now it's back up to 200. It doesn't seem to be going past 200. Because I think I would have to start lifting weights again to get back up to 200 is where I'm going to be if I lift weights again. But they damaged my shoulders are hurting so bad that I can't. That's what I got to work on next, is trying to get my shoulders fixed. And one of the nurses told me that, you know, because I already had like knee problems and shoulder problems from being an old man and being very active all my life. My joints are sore. And my shoulders were a little bit sore, but then one of the nurses says, you know, when they put you into position in the hospital, when you're getting delivered, your arms are stretched out and they're way back and your chest is up. And I think that's why my shoulders are so sore right now. But I'm going to probably end up having to get shoulder surgery, and probably on both of them.
It's been about a year, hasn't it, Wayne?
Yeah. I still can't. I can't see. I'm sitting here retired. I can't play golf because I can't swing the club. Can only bring up so high, and then my shoulders hurt. So I got to take care of that. That's going to be something I'm going to have to go see what they want to do. I don't know if they say, "Oh, you need a shoulder replacement." I don't know if I'm going to do it. I don't want to get an infection like that because I'm immune compromised now. I don't have an immune system. So I don't know if I'm going to, if they say they want to do a replacement shoulder, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'll just live with it. I'll just, because I'm afraid it's going to get infected and then I'll be,
Yeah, but you're here and you're enjoying life. It's like you say, life's a little different right now. I mean, physically, you're still not able to do some of the things you could do before, but I saw you, what was it, when I was there, like 6 weeks ago or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I noticed a difference in just 6 weeks is what I'm saying.
I think I look better.
Yeah.
I look better in 6 weeks. I'm going to buy myself a bicycle, I think. So I can ride around town.
Sure. Well, I'm telling you, man, you showed me that scar from that surgery and it was impressive.
All the way across.
You would win any competitions, I think, if we were bragging about our scars.
My beauty contest days are going to be over.
Well, let me ask you this. What have you got going? Do you have any, I already know that you're not big into trips, but do you have anything that you want to do that you still haven't done? Something that you'd like to do, maybe a bucket list item or anything?
I don't know. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, like you said, but I don't know. Maybe I'd like to go see the Baseball Hall of Fame someday.
That's cool. I did that in 1996. Yeah. And I would do it again because I went with my in-laws and Judy, who was at the time 6 months pregnant, not too comfortable. And I had two small sons. We went and we spent a few hours, but I could have stayed much longer. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to see the because I've always been such a baseball fan in my life.
Mm-hmm. I know that we haven't talked about any of this, but just off the top of your head, as you go back over your time of being a baseball fan, who are 3 or 4 of your favorite players?
I like Frank Thomas. You guys don't remember a catcher named Ed Herman? You wouldn't remember him.
I do.
I used to like that.
Yeah, you're naming White Sox players.
Oh, yeah. All my baseball favorite player of all time.
Yeah, I heard you go Frank Thomas, Ed Herman. So I was like, are you just going to name me off White Sox players?
I thought you meant White Sox players. No. I liked Roberto Clemente was a great player.
Oh, yeah. And a great person.
Yeah. So when people say, who do you think of the greatest player? Roberto Clemente. I used to like watching him. I just got to see the tail end of his career. Oh, my gosh. Who's my favorite? I just might rub some people the wrong way, but I didn't like Pete Rose. He just wasn't. I just didn't like him as a human being, and it's not from what you saw on TV. I remember being in Wrigley Field as a little kid. The players would be in a cage, and they walked across to the dugout, and I remember seeing him crouched down on the ground, yelling at some little kids, and he was mad. He was yelling at them. I don't know. Maybe the little kids said something that they probably shouldn't have said. They were not, when I say little kids, they were probably 10, 12 years old.
Right.
And I was probably about the same age at the time. I just remember him yelling at those kids. And I remember thinking, what a jerk. I mean, even if they said something, can't you just keep on going? I mean, what's a 12-year-old at the visitor? Of course they're going to say something. Let it go.
When you only meet somebody once, and if they're a famous person, that shapes your memory for the rest of your life. And here you are all these years later, and all you remember is that. And I had some of those things too, because I got my degree in sports broadcasting. So I met a lot of famous athletes, and most of them were very gracious, very kind, but I could sit here and tell you the 3 or 4 that weren't. I remember.
Yeah. So, but they're in society too. So they're not all going to be, there's going to be some.
Oh, yeah. They're in a fishbowl and, maybe they're having a bad day. I mean, because, my gosh, baseball season's 162 games. It goes for, the season lasts 6 months. But if you take spring training and everything else, it's now become a year round thing for these guys. So it's hard to be friendly and kind and smiling all the time. So I get that too.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can't even think. I just remember Roberto Clemente. I just remember him. He was one of my favorite. But Babe Ruth was a great hitter and a great pitcher. So you got to put him up there.
Okay, I know you're going to name off a couple White Sox guys, but
No,
other than
no,
that,
no,
do you
no,
have
no.
some favorites right now that you love following? You look at their stats when you're. I mean, when we were kids, Wayne, we used to get the paper and look at the box scores all the time, right?
All the time. Yeah,
Yeah. Now it's
yeah,
online.
but now it's not. It's not so much their numbers. Like Otani. What's his name? Otani.
Shohei Ohtani. Yeah.
I love that guy. He's a great player.
Yep. Me too.
And I think he might be the greatest player in the history of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my friends don't like that because he's not American. But
Whatever. I mean, baseball. That's the thing about sports. It crosses borders. I mean, some of the best players that we have in the major. You already mentioned Roberto Clemente. He wasn't from America.
Nope.
Yeah. So I mean,
Panama. Where was he from? Panama.
Yeah, Dominican Republic, somewhere out there in the Caribbean, somewhere, yeah, or Venezuela. I mean, with so many great players from Venezuela and Panama and Dominican Republic and Curacao, all these different places in the Caribbean. But see, we also have a lot of great players from Mexico now, and now they're coming, like you say, from Japan. There's a couple that have made it from Australia and several from Canada. So it really is now. I mean, when they talk about the Super Bowl, most players are, from America, right? But that are football players. Yeah. But baseball really is becoming a universal sport, as is basketball.
Right. There's so many Asians in the world that I think you're just going to see more and more of them.
And it's a favorite of theirs. So Japan, baseball is like their national pastime.
It's huge there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is amongst professional sports, and I can say this having spanned the last, 60 years of being, if not a participant, certainly someone who watches sports, the players just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We already talked about Louis Aparicio, Freddie Patek being small shortstops. I mean, you look at Shohei Ohtani, he's 6'4".
Yeah.
So I mean, he's big. He's big in his society. He's not your average Japanese height. And so, but even here in America, when I'm looking at pictures, I'll say to Judy, look at that guy. I bet you he's 6'6". And I'll get on my phone and Google, and he's, 6'5", whatever. But I can just tell by looking at them on the mound that they're huge.
Pitchers are always tall.
I don't know how old you were when you played your last baseball. Oh, you played with me one season, didn't you? Or I got you to come out and play actually baseball. And we played with Paris Urbina, and we played with Dave Robinson and a bunch of guys in this men's league.
Once I started my softball career, baseball, but I think we did play a baseball game one time. I don't know if that was Dominic Amoroso that brought me out, though.
Well, I remember we played, but just the fact that, I mean, I never faced guys that were 6'6" and 6'7" and could throw 97 miles an hour. I think I played against a couple of guys that were pros that then, were older now in their 40s and maybe throw in the upper 80s or something. And even that was a challenge.
That's a challenge. Yeah, because those guys, when they're up in the big leagues, and it looks like an asprin coming at you.
Well, not only that, it's one thing to have a fastball. And as players, especially as kids, most of the pitchers, they threw fastballs. Then they start incorporating a curveball, and you can time a fastball. And that's why the really good pitchers in the majors today, the really good ones, can throw at least 3 different pitches. And there's guys that can throw 4 now. To have somebody that can throw 97 or 98 miles an hour, but also can throw a cutter or a curveball or a slider, and can do all these different things with the ball. It's just, so when I look at a guy that can hit 300, it's amazing.
Yeah. Their pitchers are way better today than they were in the old days.
And that's why that when you have the arguments of like, who are the best players of all time, you have to go by eras. It's not fair to compare Honus Wagner or Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb. How would they do against Shohei Ohtani or even Greg Maddux, the wonderful Cub?
Yeah. But Greg Maddux didn't, he just knew how to pitch.
He was not a hard thrower. He was a pitcher.
He was a pitcher. Yeah. Yep. He'd just keep you off balance.
Yeah. And I said the wonderful Cub, but of course, a lot of people listening to this would say, Brave, because he went on to have probably his even better years with the Braves.
His best years were with the Braves. Yeah.
Baseball's been fun. It's been fun for you throughout your life to follow as a pastime, and it's been fun for me. And I know we like other sports too, but certainly it's been a lot of fun. And then it's been fun to be able to participate in our own way as softball players. That's what baseball players do when they get too old to play baseball, right?
Yeah. Played softball. We played softball with some ex-major league players.
Oh, yeah. Plenty over the years. Yeah, plenty over the years.
Yeah.
I sure appreciate you taking the time to come on and tell your story today. And not just that, Wayne, I appreciate the fact that you're still here and able to tell your story.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Maybe sometime we'll do a trip and get over to Hawaii, because it'd be fun for me to show you some of the things I really appreciate. That, now that we're older, we won't be riding the waves and doing those kind of things, but it's still kind of fun to just go and see all the different things there are to see, because, man, I'm telling you, it's one of the great things about Hawaii is there's so many different things to see. There's historical things, depending on what island you're on, that you can see things you've heard about throughout your life, like Pearl Harbor and things. And then there's just beautiful things that you just don't see anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to worry about me because I don't want to get in the ocean. We don't belong in the ocean. Humans are not strong enough swimmers to be in the ocean. So no, I'll stand there, but I'm not going in.
Okay, well, I got a special for you to watch. It might be on Netflix, called Naiad. You got to watch that, because it's about Diana Naiad, who swam between Cuba and Key West, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty impressive.
That is impressive, yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, thanks again, man. I do appreciate you taking the time today. Hey, to those listeners, check back in 2 weeks, because we're going to have another interesting guest here on Nobody Knows Your Story, as we always do. All right, Wayne, aloha, buddy.
All right, Lawrence, thank you.
Down a little country road not far away,